So this ship is starting to look pretty cool, if I may say so myself, but it's not done yet. I have a whole other level I want to make. Some of you asked for more scratch building, so today I'll show you how I take ordinary items and turn them into something cool. Starting with this toothpick container, I begin by prepping it. I remove the logo by scrubbing it with nail polish remover and sanding it with very fine grit sandpaper. After that, I glue on styrene pieces to dress it up a bit. The next item I use is this empty printer cartridge. I think it has some really nice sci-fi details. However, the plastic is pretty horrible to work with, so I sand it before gluing anything to it. By framing it with square styrene rods, the two pieces look more unified. I make a guillotine type door lid thing in the same dimensions as the opening, using tape and a pencil to trace the edge. I stick the tape to some cardstock and cut it out with a hobby knife. Then I glue it onto the container so it sticks out a bit, making it look like it opens at a slight angle. Next, I attach some pistons to the side at the same angle. These are all parts from a model car kit I found on sale, which I use for kit bashing projects like this. The computer screen and panel are 3D prints from earlier episodes in the Starship series, and they bring the upper and lower levels of the ship together. I also use the same gauge wires that I use in the other modules. I feel the lid lacks detail and, well, I go a little wild with the super glue as a result. Oh well. For the top, I use the same tape method to trace and cut a piece of styrene that fits just right after some sanding. I imagine the operator must have access to the very important moisture and light technology that's accessible from the top. So I'm kit patching a hatch and attaching it with plastic cement. I use a really fine styrene rod to make a lip around the hatch. It's finicky work, but I think it makes it look a lot better. I also add a handle from the car model kit. Now I'm mixing nail polish remover with Tamiya putty to make a texture paste that's really fun to work with and sticks to almost any material and surface. I make sure to use a cheap paintbrush with stiff bristles. The back of the printer cartridge has some really cool details, but they are beneath a layer of thin plastic, which, if removed, will only make things messy from printer ink. Now I'm going to add the soil layer. To avoid squandering the Diorama sand effect, I think it's smart to add a layer of foil to the bottom. Either I didn't press it hard enough, or the sand and snow effect reacts with the watered down white glue. I don't know, but you can see from the time-lapse that it started swelling. I tried to push it down, but that made the white glue less effective, so instead I went with gravel and sand fixer from AK. It also made it swell a little, but after a good while it dried solid. Time to paint. This would be a nightmare to paint after gluing the top, so I'm finishing the inside first. I start with a white primer, then apply a liberal amount of Agrax Earthshade from Citadel. What gets spilled on the sides, I just blend with water. It feels natural to have some residue on the walls as well, so I think it just adds to the model. I'm not really sure what kind of veggies is growing in this thing, so I use a cool looking tuft, cutting it into smaller pieces to use as sprouts, evenly spaced out in the soil. I'm going to install lights in this, so I first prep the top with silver tape to avoid getting light spilling through the plastic. Then I drill a hole for the light. You can see the silver tape really does its job compared to the sides of the toothpick container, so I add some silver tape to the container as well, but just at the top. I don't really want it to show in the diorama. To get a really strong and nice effect out of it, I use 2 lights stuck to double-sided tape. And finally, I can glue the top on. To hide the hole and most of the wire, I glue on this plastic bit, also from the car kit. Then use green stuff putty to fill in the rest. I've seen diorama builders like Night Shift make weld lines on tanks with a putty like this, so I wanted to try that out. Maybe it doesn't make that much sense for this model, but I just tell myself it's supposed to be like this. Next, I prime the outside black. I don't want to accidentally overspray the inside with my airbrush, so I prime with a brush. Then I add the base colors in several steps. I know I could have gone with a lighter primer when aiming for such a light finished result, but as you can see, I didn't. When I'm painting something in just a few colors, different shades of those same colors can really make the model look more interesting, I think. That's why I blend some white, grey and brown into the different greys and go over different parts and panels. For the wires, I again use some of the same colors used in the other modules of the ship. If you've seen my other videos, you've seen this trick before, but a streak in grime enamel wash is the magic potion I need on everything in this series. It makes everything look dirty and worn, and it really fits the aesthetic I'm going for. Plus, it's super easy to work with. A black panel liner comes next. I usually use a Tamiya panel liner, but this is one from AK that I bought a little while back, and I really like it. The tip is super fine, and the black is really black and flows great. I'm not sponsored or anything, it's just surprisingly good. When that's dry, I add some highlights. I use the same colors as the base colors, and it really makes the parts more three-dimensional. I also paint some really vibrant colors onto the panel, doing my best not to paint the crevices where the panel liner has done its job. In my previous video, the pilot attached post-it notes where he needed to remember something. It was so fun making and adding them that I had to do it again. I don't think I've shown this process before, but this is how I make the screens. First I take measurements, then I go into Photoshop and make a document in the same size. Then I search for pictures. I want a status screen showing the growth rate, so a carrot works fine as a base. I also need some statistics like moisture levels and stuff, so retro computer screens it is. Then a graph for expected harvest times or something like that. After some effects, filters and adjusting, it's scaled down and printed, and you can barely see anything. But at least you know I take this project seriously. When the screen is cut out, I fit it into the monitor and fill it with UV resin. And just like that, it's done. I present to you a 1/35th scale astrobotany laboratory made from some pretty basic items and some kit bashing pieces. This is actually something I wouldn't have made without some great feedback and ideas from my awesome Patreon supporters. Thank you guys, and thank you all for watching. Please consider subscribing and also go back to watch my previous videos in the series if you haven't already. Until next time, goodbye.